Mayor Copeland is absent. Tom Baylor,
Here.
Kathy Sherman,
Here.
Jeff Gard,
Here.
Melina Meyer,
Here.
Ann Schaefer,
Here.
David Allison,
Here.
and David Gleason.
Here.
Okay, that's a quorum of council. Is anybody else on the line? Because if there's members of the public, they should really be calling in on the public line.
Yeah, can I ask whoever else is online to say their name?
Ken Jones. I can call the public line if you want.
Please call the public line.
And who else is on the line? I'm sorry, I didn't catch that. Say it again, please.
Holly?
Oh, Holly's on the line. Okay.
Anybody else on the line?
Yeah, Melina, what's the public number?
The public number is 253-6202.
Okay, thank you. I'll disconnect and call that one.
Thank you. Anybody else on this line? Susan, are you able to see how many people are on the line?
No, we are not.
Okay. If there's anybody else on the line, please state your name for the record. Okay, the next item is approval of agenda, and before we do a vote of that, I would entertain the motion to move item number 4, the executive session, to item 1A under new business.
So move.
Is there a second?
Second, this is Kathy.
Okay, so item 4 will be moved to 1A under new business.
When we get there, but we have to public comment first.
Is there approval? Can we have a vote, a roll call vote of the approval of agenda, please?
Point of order.
Yes, go ahead.
This is Allison. I'm just not sure why this is why this qualifies as an emergency, and maybe we can talk about that in 1A. But I don't approve of the agenda because I don't see any executive session emergency information on there.
Can we have a clarification by the manager? I'm assuming that's who called the emergency meeting. I could be wrong because I have the same information as the other council members.
I'm going to defer really quickly to Holly. The subject at this point is a potential lawsuit against city for actions that it has taken recently. Holly, would you like to clarify how that qualifies for executive session?
Sure. I do think it qualifies as an emergency, but I think it's a great point that that was made because you want to talk about the emergency nature, so this is a really appropriate discussion point. In essence, you have a group of industry individuals who are considering a lawsuit against the city, and the city's actions now, before that group convenes or makes a decision, may have imminent and very real impact on whether or not that lawsuit comes to fruition. So that makes it an emergency under the law.
And does that allow us to do executive session?
Yeah, I think the executive session, so long as we follow the executive session rules and it's noticed properly and no action is taken in an executive session, we're in line with the law.
Okay, does that answer your question, Councilmember Allison?
Yeah, that answers my question, but I think there's some misunderstanding going on here. So I'm not going to vote to approve the agenda, but I'll go into that when we get into the discussion.
All right, is there any other discussion about the approval of the agenda?
Yes, Councilman Baylor.
Go ahead, Councilman Bailey.
Yeah, I share Councilman Allison's concerns here. And we had this quick meeting, and hopefully some people knew about it. Now we're going to go into executive session right away. I'm a little bit, I'm not sure why we're doing this here. Thank you.
All right, any other discussion? And I maybe missed a step. I believe the discussion, because we haven't voted on the change of moving an executive session up to that. So the discussion right now is on that motion. So is there any other discussion on amending the agenda?
Ms. Vice Mayor?
Yep, go ahead, Gleason, Councilmember Gleason.
I'm just a little worried about the speed that we're going through this meeting. I don't know why we would need to change executive session. I think the discussion topics, the public discussion topics, should be discussed first. And then we go into executive session if we had figured out before then. I mean, I don't think we need to go into executive session if we can get this sorted out. I guess that, this is new territory for me, so I hope I'm not misspeaking.
Okay. So there's a couple other on that phone that we haven't heard from yet regarding that. Kathy Sherman, do you have any comment about the change to the agenda?
I'm kind of at a loss, as is everyone else, but I would prefer, I guess, to avoid an executive session if this is a discussion that we can have out in the open. I would prefer that.
Okay. Is there any other, I should have kept better records. I have it open now of everyone that spoke. Is there anybody else that hasn't spoken about the amendment to change the agenda?
Vice Mayor Meyer, this is Councilwoman Schaefer.
Go ahead, Schaefer.
Yeah, I would be more in favor, I guess, of going on with the open meetings first before going into executive session as well.
Okay. Sounds like we heard from everyone, and it might not go through, but let's go ahead and do a roll call of amending the agenda.
Vice Mayor?
Councilmember Garden?
Yeah, I'm not speaking for or against going into executive session first or later, and public involvement is always better than not. But I'd like to hear from our council to see what their recommendations are before I know we all rather do business in the open as much as we can. I'd just like to see what council's opinion is on this.
I think this is Holly. I think that the approach of doing the public discussions first and even trying to get as far as we can into the discussion topic for the executive session and reserving executive session to use if we need it is a very good approach. That works for me.
Thank you.
Okay, thanks, Holly. Is there any other discussion on the motion on the floor to amend the agenda before we do a roll call? Okay, hearing none, could we get a roll call on the amendment to amend the agenda?
Okay. David Allison?
No.
Ann Schaefer?
No.
David Gleason?
No.
Kathy Sherman?
Yes.
Yes, amend the agenda?
To move?
I'm sorry, I didn't hear your vote, Kathy.
Yeah, to move the executive session subject to 1A, is that what we're voting on?
No, yes, correct.
Then I'm voting yes.
Okay. Melina Meyer?
Yes.
Tom Baylor?
No.
Jeff Gard?
No.
Okay, so motion to amend the agenda fails 2-5.
Okay, so now we're on the just regular approval of the agenda as written. Is there any other discussion? Okay, hearing none, can we get a roll call of the approval of the agenda?
Yes. Jeff Guard,
Are you what?
Yeah.
Ann Schaefer, Ann Schaefer on the approval of the agenda.
I'm sorry. Yes.
Melina Meyer,
Yes.
David Allison,
No.
Kathy Sherman,
Yes.
David Gleason,
Yes.
Tom Baylor.
Yes.
Motion carries 6-1.
Okay, the next item on the agenda is disclosure of conflict of interest. Does any council members have anything to disclose? All right, hearing none, we'll move on to communications by and petitions from visitors. Item number 1 is audience comments regarding agenda items. And I'm kind of on the phone too, so
Do we have?
is
We have
there
to.
anybody on the phone, Susan?
Okay, we have to put council on hold to take the first caller.
Okay.
Question?
I gotta put you on hold. Here's our first caller.
Here's the first caller. Council back on?
Yeah, council's back on.
Okay.
Go ahead. Hello, you're on council. Do you have a comment?
Oh, sorry, this is Barb Jewell. I'm not sure if my comment should be held until audience participation in G, because the comments are not specifically regarding commercial fishing industry or the emergency rules. So should I wait?
Yeah, if you want to call back later, that would be great. So go ahead and hang up so the next caller can be put through for comments on the agenda
Okay.
item.
Thank you.
I think we have our next caller.
You might want to remind them to turn their YouTube site off when they speak.
Will do. Thanks.
Okay, there should be somebody on the line.
Okay, if you're on the line, go ahead and make your comments now.
Okay, yeah, this is Ken Jones. Can you hear me?
We can. Thank you.
All right, 514 Sunnyside Drive. Yeah, I'm pretty concerned about some of the action that the city's been taking recently, especially with no notice on this meeting, or relatively little notice, under the 6-hour notice that was approved in your disaster declaration. And under the 24 hours that would be regularly allowed. I'm also concerned with the action that you guys took at the last meeting with a pretty serious, ordinance without proper public notice. You took the action to direct the city manager. That wasn't on the agenda. And this is all, real world, has real world effect to the financial well-being of this community and to the city. You're opening yourselves up to liability. It sounds like the attorney's going to be talking with you about that later, which I'm glad of, and really hope that you would listen to her. Seemed like at the last meeting, they kind of, Helen at least kind of warned you guys that this is a dangerous path, and you guys still took action. Fishing is the lifeblood of this town, and I realize that we're in a global pandemic, but there's not a single case here yet. The state of Alaska has a relatively flat curve, and some of the action that others in the community have been pushing for is going to bring a level economic disaster on top of the global pandemic to our community. And I just really hope you guys consider that. I was glad to see that the governor came out with a little bit of clarification on the airport. And I would just say, don't get carried away. There's an incident command team. There's other public things that are working on this, and mitigation plans are working. Just, take this off your shoulders and just let the incident command team do their job and allow public process through this. Thank you.
Okay, do we have any other people calling in for comments on the agenda item?
Yes.
I'm gonna pick them up now.
Okay.
Caller?
Hi, you're online for comments on the agenda item. Go ahead and state your name for the record and mute YouTube in the background if you have that going. And then go ahead.
Okay. Jim Smith, 4.4 Mile White Shed.
Okay, go ahead.
Yeah, this is Jim Smith. I live at 4.4 Mile White Shed. We've got a couple fights here ahead of us. Possible legal fight with the processors and whoever else. Or we have a medical fight. So I guess you as the council, it's your decision which fight to take. And I guess we have to decide what portion of our population and the transient worker population is expendable in order to have a fishery. That's business as usual. It's a problem that I think we could find some solutions to. And I ask you guys to be brave today and in the coming months. I think we can do this.
All right, thank you for calling in. Is there any other audience comments on the line?
Yes.
Next caller?
All right, you're online for audience comments regarding agenda items. Please state your name for the record.
Thank you. Oh, so I'm live now?
Yep, you're online now. And if you have YouTube playing in the background, could you please mute it while you are...
Yes, I did. Thank you. Okay, hello, everybody. My name is Molly Mulvaney. I live at 1000 Pipe Street here in Cordova. And like Ken Jones, I'm also concerned about the notice of this meeting. We all thought it was going to be Friday at 3, and then we thought it was going to be tomorrow at noon, and now suddenly it's right now. So with that said, I don't have very thought out thoughts, so I apologize for perhaps what might be my disjointed thinking, but I thank you for taking my comments. And I thank all of you for all of the work, for dropping everything and going to these emergency meetings. I'm thankful for the IMT for putting in all the planning. And I'm thankful for the many volunteers of this city that are putting in lots of unpaid time on this issue. And it was great to hear you talking with tribal council yesterday. I guess when I'm thinking about this threat of a legal lawsuit, I'm called to mind. I'm from New York State, and I talk with my parents who are elderly, and I occasionally listen to Governor Andrew Cuomo's press briefings, where he's been very direct and candid about the situation going on there. And I think it was about a week ago, one of the reporters asked Governor Cuomo, Mr. Cuomo, are you concerned about the lawsuits that are threatened against you from the rest of the hospitals in New York State, that you are requiring all these hospitals to provide 20% of their PPE and their ventilators and ship them to the hospitals in need further down by New York City? And what he said was something along the lines of, if I don't get threatened with at least 5 lawsuits a day,
I don't feel like I'm doing my job. So please just don't let the threat of a lawsuit of economic interest just cause you fear. I mean, think you have right now, I understand it's unclear what it is, but I did also listen to the April 7th briefing by Commissioner Crum, and what he said when somebody called in from Dillingham about how are you going to regulate outside workers and continue the fishery. And he said fishing is a high priority, and we're working with all those groups, and we're working on mitigation plans and what the proper response is, and it's an ongoing, continuing, constantly changing conversation. And he did say that for the people coming from outside and in to come to these fisheries, we want to make sure we protect Alaskans. And if we can't do that in a safe way, then we're going to have to find, and I'm reading right from the notes I took from his, so they're pretty much a transcription, and we're going to have to find an alternate means to actually deliver this work and get creative on how this works. We want to make sure we're taking care of that way. Again, he talked about it's an ongoing conversation. Now, I know nobody knows exactly how it will play out, and as Mr. Jones pointed out, we currently have no known confirmed cases, but as we are learning all the time, a lot of the cases are asymptomatic, and it's very hard to keep track of it and keep it from spreading. But what we do have, and again, it's not hardcore data, but we have credible information from what we can see has happened around the country. And we also have from your own medical doctor, even if you ignore the letter that was leaked, even if we take that out of the picture, what she said at the meeting last Wednesday, she said that, and even when Councilman Glason asked her, the processors close their campus and employees aren't allowed in or out, are the processors still a high risk? And she said, yes, it's like a cruise ship. She also said, in a perfect world, she'd like to pause coming people until we have a plan in place and systems in place for people coming in. She said, we feel that the processing employees, might pose the largest risk for bringing this pandemic to our community. She also said, when asked about, because there was a potential that maybe cannery workers, a handful of them were coming in on the airport on the night, she said, we are not prepared for them to come tomorrow. We would like to have that delayed. So that is the information from our own doctor. And I think as you consider any potential legal threats, I'm not surprised that they're there, that you listen to, you look around what's happened in the country and you listen to your medical doctor as well as the attorneys and to Commissioner Crum, who has said if it doesn't look like it's going to be, can be safely done, we're hearing from our doctor right at this point. I'm not saying it might not change, but at this point, she does not think it can be safely done. We need to figure out a creative way to do that. Oh, and I was just also going to say, we do restrict travel. It's not something we've done before. We have restricted travel. I remember when Mount Redoubt was blowing in Anchorage and travel was restricted. They were shutting the airport down at times. People could not get in. We close those roads. There are times where we restrict travel of people. And why? Why did we close it for Mount Redoubt? Why do we close roads? Because they pose dangers, and there's a chance that people will get hurt. So they take the safe course and restrict travel. Thank you very much.
Okay, please hang up the line so the next caller can be patched through.
Okay, thanks.
Okay, is there any other calls in? Okay, you're online for audience comments regarding agenda items. If you have YouTube playing in the background, please mute it and then state your name for the record. And listen to your medical doctor as well as the attorneys and to... Hi, we can hear you, but could you please mute the YouTube in the background? You're online now. At this point, I'm not saying it might not change, but at this point, she does not think it can be done. I don't know if they can hear me online. Hi. Oh, hi. Could you please tube in the background and then state your name? We're under audience comments regarding agenda items, and then you can go ahead with your testimony.
Yeah, I'm ready whenever I'm after this, then I'm going.
Yeah, you're online, so go ahead and state your name for the record and then your comment.
Okay. Sorry, it's a little off on here, but my name is Raven Cunningham. I'm at 502 4th Street. I just want to address the council that, like it's been said before, the community is not really sure what it exactly is being talked about today. We've had a little bit of a hint. I want to make sure that we are concerned, if we're concerned about the possible liability of loss of income by processors and others, shouldn't we also be concerned about the liability of damages about not acting to protect the public health? I believe that the only way to limit the spread of COVID-19 to our community is isolating. However, I want us to not confuse that with shutting down our fisheries. I see these ideas as completely separate. We must have our health and safety of our residents as our first priority, and we need to isolate our community. But that doesn't mean we can't have a fishery. There's still ways that we can go about that. I believe we're too focused on taking right legal action, and we need to realize that we're in the state of emergency and that this is a global pandemic, and we need to act appropriately. We need to focus on the health and safety and the continuation of our community. And I want to leave council. I know that we're all dealing with a very difficult situation right now, but I want to leave you with one question to keep in mind is, would you like to have lives on your hands, or would you like money in your pocket? Thank you.
Another caller, it's Barb Jewel again, though, so she might be next time. I'll answer and you can let her know.
Okay. There's another caller. Council, are you on?
Yeah, we're there.
Oh, we're here. Sorry, I was on mute.
Okay.
Go ahead, patch him through.
There should be a caller online.
Okay.
This is Barb Jewel, mile 2.2 Whitehead Road. I decided to call back and that my comments were related to the agenda as I listened to council comments and the callers. As you plan to have this discussion on how the fishing will be handled this coming year, I want you to consider the mental health issues related to both the decisions that are being made and the process by which they're made. The isolation, job loss, economic impact, and fear that have come along with the COVID-19 virus all are having huge impacts on people's mental health. Yesterday, the federal government appropriated significant sums of money in anticipation of an increase in depression, anxiety, suicide, and drug use. As you make decisions going forward, I hope that you will consider these impacts, both in terms of the rules that you make and the resources that you allocate. The things that are happening now will have significant impacts on people's health.
You have someone else? What's that? We want to recess? Okay, we think there's another one. We're just hang on 1 second, please, council.
Okay, I think we got Barb back on the line.
Oh, I think we lost Barb and now we have her back. Maybe not.
Maybe not. If we have any council on the line.
Council, are you on the line?
End the call and dial back in.
Yeah. Okay, we're going to end the call and dial back in, council members, so be patient, sorry. Now they're all texting me. We got the boot. Lost ya.
an invalid conference ID. Please enter your conference. The administrator has not yet arrived. The conference administrator has joined the conference. There are 2 on the conference.
Why only 2? 3?
Welcome to Copper Valley Telephone's conferencing service. Please enter your There are 4 attendees on the conference call.
Tom Baylor calling back.
So we got the boot, but I'm back.
Yeah, we're waiting to make sure. Melina, are you back?
It was kind of in the middle of Barb's comment, or maybe towards the end, I guess.
Okay.
Hey, Tom Baylor's back on.
Melina, are you back?
Yeah, Alex, back.
Okay, I have Baylor, Allison, Glayson's back. Schaefer? Guard? Melina Meyer, are you back?
I just got back online.
Okay.
Had to call in.
Want me to do?
Okay, so I got cut off during Barb Jewell's comments.
Do we have any callers on?
Was that the same with the rest of the council?
Is it Barb?
We all did.
Okay.
Okay. Hopefully Barb will try to call back, but we'll take another caller right now. So,
Okay, and just so everybody, I know that YouTube is delayed a little bit, but we limit audience comments to 3 minutes, and I'm going to start doing a timer, and sorry if I cut you off at the 3-minute marker, but I will be doing that just for time's sake, so we can get everybody in.
okay, Jason's going to try and patch somebody through. Hang on. Okay.
Okay, hi, you're online for audience comments?
Yep, okay. Do you pick me up?
Yep, and we have a 3-minute limit, so I'm going to be letting you know when your 3 minutes is up.
Okay.
But go ahead whenever.
Yeah, Bob Smith, 702 Lake Avenue. Yeah, I'm just a little, I'm quite concerned as I listen to everything that's going on about how much authority the lawyers are given in a health care crisis. So some of the things that I see that need to be done and aren't being done is a free flow of information is necessary. If processors are threatening legal action as a taxpayer and a citizen, I'm curious as to know what processors are doing it and what are they saying. Another thing, much of what needs to be done in this town doesn't cost us anything. Following up on the quarantines, making sure people have a place to stay, what's going on in the harbor's quarantine, it exists, but it's basically just a paper quarantine. So there's a lot of work to be done regardless of what the lawyers do. And when I hear my doctor, the public health official, the closest thing to a public health official that we have, saying this could be a catastrophe, this is what we need to take seriously, the most seriously. Thank you. I'm out.
All right, thank you for your call. And we'll go ahead and see if there's another caller on. All right, you're online for council comment or for audience comments regarding agenda items, and there is a 3-minute limit. And if you could mute YouTube in the background, you're online.
Okay. Sorry it was awkward. I was just listening to someone else talk. I thought I was in a queue.
This is Sean Gilman, mile 2.2 Whiteshed. I appreciate what the council's facing daily, and I just wanted to call in. It's a little tough for me to listen, catch up on what the meeting was about, and get in queue. But I just wanted to say I believe you all are going to see both sides, we'll call it, talking about legal action, but I try. And I just wanted to call in. It's a little tough for me to listen, catch up on what the meeting was about, and get in queue. But I just wanted to say I believe you all are going to see both sides, we'll call it, talking about legal action. But I try. Oh, no, I was just thanking you. Thank you. Oh, no, I was just thanking you. Thank you, Melina. It's a little awkward with the echo, but I think I covered what I needed for now.
Okay, thank you for your call. And if you hang up on this line, the next caller can be patched through. All right, you're online for audience comments regarding agenda items. There is a 3-minute limit, and if you could mute your YouTube and state your name for the record.
Okay. This is Brandon Comprehend, 6.5 miles, Cordova, Alaska, and I just have one question, which is, where are your priorities at? Because number one should be to protect human life.
Hello.
All right, you're online. There's a 3-minute limit, but if you could state your name and say your testimony.
Sure, Craig Booth, 404 4th Street. I'm here first on behalf of CCMC Board of Directors. It's been stated many times today in the public comment, but as everybody knows, no surprise to anybody in the community, the doctors have indicated that they're not ready for this. There's a plan continually being refined and put in place, implemented, but we're not ready. It's not time. People are working tirelessly to do everything they can to try to mitigate this catastrophe. As Hannah indicated the last meeting, this is bad. No matter how you look at it. We put in a request for $300,000 worth of equipment that's in the queue. The ball's rolling, but you can only get so much done. Hospital's not ready yet. I'd hate to overwhelm the people that get to take care of the hundreds and hundreds of sick people when they're not ready for it yet. So CCMC board member hat is off. Individual father of 4 hat is on. I'm scared. I don't want a whole bunch of people in this town to die, young or old. One of my kids has asthma, so that puts one of my 4 at high risk, I think. I like what people are doing. I like the measures that people are doing, putting masks on, putting gloves on. But like Jim Smith said early on, depending on how we handle this, we're making a decision on who's expendable and who's not, and how many. It's a tough one. I'd hate to be in your shoes, but we're kind of all in this together. So thanks for your time.
All right, thank you for calling in. Is there anybody else on the line?
Not at this time.
Hey, Melina, I just was curious, who spoke before Craig? Did she say Brandy?
Brandon Comperon.
Oh, thank you.
Okay, since there's no more audience comments at this time, we do have audience participation later on in the agenda for YouTube, people on YouTube, and there still will be that 3-minute limit. Thank you guys for calling, and we'll move on to new business. Item 2, discussion of commercial fishing industry impacts of council direction.
I'm going to kill her.
Question?
Go ahead.
Yeah, this is Councilmember Guard. It got by me, or I didn't hear it, but we did conflicts of interest. I didn't hear anything on ex parte communication. I don't know that it needs to be stated, but I received a phone call from Brad O'Leary at Ocean Beauty to speak to me about the actions that we'd taken last meeting, last special meeting we had, not workshop. So I just wanted to put that out there.
Okay. I think we've been getting a lot of calls. Should we ask, is Holly on the line?
Yes, I'm here. The ex parte communication aspect goes to quasi-judicial proceedings, and you're still in a legislative realm because no lawsuit has been filed, and if one is filed, the city won't be the decision maker. It will be the court. So it's the fact that you took calls from constituents, whatever their opinions may be or their employment, you're fine. You don't have to disclose that.
Okay, I just wanted to get it out there, so in fairness and openness, it's out there. Thank you.
All right, thanks for that clarification, Holly. And I'm assuming that's why that part wasn't written in the conflicts of interest part. So discussion of commercial fishing industry impacts council's direction, item number 2. Do we have a motion to put it on the table?
Councilmember Meyer?
Go ahead, Allison.
Could I get a point of clarification on what council direction we're discussing?
This agenda was put together last minute, I believe, by the city manager, so I'm going to turn that question over to her.
Go ahead.
So where we stand right now is that we have been given some advance notice that because of action that council took day before yesterday in the special meeting, that the processing industry is concerned that due process wasn't followed, public notice wasn't followed. We went off of our agenda and took direction that did not take into consideration input from anyone in the industry or the community. So,
okay, but just my clarification is that direction was for the manager to discuss with the attorneys what the options were in that situation. It wasn't to enact anything. It was giving direction to our manager to discuss something with the attorneys, and we should be able to give that kind of direction to our manager at any point in time. That it's not an actionable item. It's simply asking you to work with Holly on what our options were and what was legal and what wasn't legal.
I think there were two.
That's my point, is that I think there's a miscommunication on what the direction was and where people are going, and that's why I don't think this is an emergency, because there was no action taken other than directing you to talk to the attorney.
I will only say that what you discussed and what the community has heard and what the industry has heard and what action others are taking is above and beyond that particular direction. And I will admit I was very confused after the meeting as to exactly what council did. So my recommendation is to reset and be very clear again on what exactly council wants to do. I'll just say a couple of things. That number one, what's been brought to my attention is that the discussion and actions of the 4/8 council meeting that there were things that were not on the agenda, which means that there was discussion about that didn't follow either city code or statute for public notice. That was brought to my attention. There was some direction that was given to the incident management medical team regarding oversight of processor plans and additional city requirements that didn't allow for processor input or require establishment of reasonable criteria for those requirements. I will say that perhaps you intended that to be my role. I was not clear on that. The additional thing is that there was direction to the incident management medical team to prevent the opening of processor plants if those plants did not meet that team's requirements. And there was concern that that was an overreach and that it created uncertainty in the industry. Those are three very specific things.
So if I could interrupt you a little bit, Helen, there, because I think we're getting a little bit into, from my understanding, you asked for this item be in there because you wanted clarification on the direction that council gave to you and voted on our last council meeting.
I would like clarification, very public clarification on exactly what council would like done with industry and processor plants, because those are very specific things that have caused confusion and are resulting in consideration of legal action.
Okay. So this item number 2 is not on the table yet, or on the floor yet as a discussion item. So is there any council members that want to make the motion to put item number 2 on the floor?
Melina?
Mayor?
I heard Baylor and Gleason, so I'll go with Baylor and then Gleason. Go ahead.
Well, the first question I would have is this isn't action item, it's a discussion item, so I'm not sure what motion you'd want to have on the table. And as of the maker of the motion on the previous meeting, I guess I would like maybe the lawyer to weigh in on this. The intent, and perhaps I didn't make my intent clear, the intent, in fact, my first words were get concurrence, that the city manager speak to the legal team and see if we could give that authority to our medical staff. That got rolled in to motion, and mostly because of the confusion on the phone, and it's hard to be accurate on here. It's hard to conduct business here, but the intent was for the city manager to speak to our legal team and see if we could even do this and come back with those options. Now, we did it during the meeting. We could have made that during pending agenda or during city manager's comment. I mean, we have that authority all the time to say, would you please look into this and then bring it back to us at the next meeting? And that was the whole intent of that. So I'd like to hear from the lawyer of what process that we violated there. We probably didn't do it correctly, but I don't see the issue here is what I'm trying to say. The intent was for her to speak, the city manager need to speak to the legal team and see if this was even a viable option. So I think hearing from the legal side of this would be helpful. Thanks.
Okay, thank you, Councilman Baylor. Susan, I'm going to go and ask you for a little bit direction on that. On discussion items, I don't have to have a motion to put it on the floor as a discussion item. I can just put it on the floor for discussion.
Yes. Yes.
Okay. All right. So I do have a roll call sheet here. So I'm just going to go down the list of council members for comments. But if Holly wants to chime in to respond to Councilmember Baylor's comment that he just made?
I would. And I want to say, I think this is there's a lot going on in this meeting that's very important. For me, the nature of this meeting, the reason why it's an emergency meeting is to correct and get council on the right track regarding public notice for meetings and how you figure out how much public notice is needed and in what way when you're in the midst of a blanket emergency like COVID-19. And when we do that, the meeting that you guys had on the 8th, you had an agenda item, and as an emergency ordinance the emergency nature of that item was in writing in the emergency ordinance regarding fines and penalties. Any discussion that involved motions that were approved or denied was off agenda. And while sometimes, if you're in a regularly scheduled meeting, the harm of that or the due process implications of that might not be a big deal. But when we have an emergency meeting called where the actions you take have significant impacts or could have impacts, when we don't have the public there and they don't know to be there, because those items, they have no idea that those items could come up as part of a discussion. So then they don't participate, and then what you get is what I would call reactive government, because you hear from them later, and then council is inundated with constituents who are feeling like they're not a part of the process. Sometimes it's going to be necessary. Sometimes you're going to have to make a decision fast in order to save lives, in order to deal with very real emergencies, and that's why Rule 3 gives you the ability, Rule 2 gives you the ability to have a meeting with no less than 6 hours notice. But when you guys are deciding when to have these meetings, when to call them emergencies and how fast to have them, you have to balance the impact with the action, the impact of the action with the rights of the public to be involved. And because the question by the court will always be, well, why couldn't you hold the meeting on Saturday? Or why couldn't you hold it on Sunday? And the answer for this meeting would be, we needed to reset and uncure the lack of notice that we provided on Friday. So there's no action item on your agenda today. It really is just let's be clear what public notice is in the realm of the emergency, and let's work harder at making sure the agendas that go out are sent out to the public with the most notice we could possibly give them so that you could hear all of the comments of your constituents. So I don't know if that's helpful, but that's really why I think this meeting is an emergency. Any direction or action taken at this meeting would not be appropriate beyond these discussions and making sure we're in compliance with the Constitution and the statute and your charter.
Okay, does that answer your question, Baylor, before I move on to the next one?
No, it doesn't. So the discussion was the action, I guess we want to call it action, the recommendation that the city manager speak to you on the last meeting. That seems to be the issue here. So what do we do to rectify that? Does that just go away? Do we have to, if we want to pursue that, we have to notice that on a future agenda and then have that discussion? So how do we handle the past deeds that we've done? And if I was wrong, which I was, I guess, and I think council, we made a mistake, but the public has to bear with us. We're trying to get through this too on real short notice. So how do we correct our previous actions? That would be my ask of the lawyer.
I think what we need to do with 24 hours notice, because of the implications of these issues, is the city manager has heard council and has an idea of what directions council may or may not want to go, right? So as the city manager and as the executive director of your emergency operations organization, she can bring forward on the agenda action items that council can discuss, and they can amend and revise them as needed, but with that 24 hours notice, where we're careful to ensure that we're covering these topics, giving that 24 hours is going to cure any misstep that may have happened, and in the last meeting. But the biggest cure is just understanding that 6 hours isn't written in stone. Council still has to really think about, when we call a meeting, where's the line for when it's an emergency? And that is very difficult right now. COVID-19 is very difficult to determine what is an emergency and how many hours you need. So we need to exercise the considerations. We need to think about it. So that would be the cure. A new meeting 24 hours from now with action items that reflect the discussions and direction that we've been looking at.
Okay, I'm going to go off this roll call sheet for council comments to keep stuff straight, and then I'll just circle through it for the discussion. So if you don't have anything to say now, I will go through the list and go back up to the top again. Councilmember Ann Schaefer, do you have any discussion for this item? All right, we may have lost her. Kathy Sherman?
Thanks, Vice Mayor. So I have two questions, and maybe Holly will need to weigh in. I've been going back since it was pointed out to me that we had possibly made errors on the 8th of April. When I look at the agenda, what jumps out at me first is the fact that Ordinance 1185 was not on the agenda, and that is the ordinance that we passed. And I thought that was our violation because it was not on the agenda. Or was it on the amended agenda? Is that what it was?
Susan might be able to answer that one. I'll point that question to her.
I don't know if I recall. I don't have that in front of me. What?
Okay, well, I remember it was the amended agenda that you, I believe it was on that one. I think that's clarification. I don't have
Thanks,
anything.
Melina. So, secondly, I want to just echo what Mr. Baylor said. We were giving direction to the manager to find out more about what our role as policymakers could be with these plans. And I do believe that we can give direction to the city manager, and we expected that to come back to us, just like the travel question that's been placed, and I was expecting all that to come back tomorrow at the meeting. And I guess I think it is extremely difficult. Even city council is getting these emergency meeting notices. I was out the road. I mean, I just flew in and broke the speed limit into this. So I think we need to really be careful about trying to think hard about what we're going to call a special meeting, and I think we'll be smarter and safer if we give 24 hours notice to our community. And following that, what I would like to see happen is, I think even if Ordinance 1185 was on the amended agenda, if I remember correctly, that came about 3 minutes before the meeting started. I would like to see that returned to an agenda. I'd like to see discussion about the mutual aid agreements on a future agenda and the Mandate 12, which are all things that we've discussed. And I think if we can clearly tackle some of those subjects with public notice, that might help to quell some of this misinformation that's going out. And that's all I have.
Vice Mayor, I would just like to I think those are all really good comments. I agree with Councilmember Sherman's comments regarding the ordinance. That is also a concern, so I just would like to weigh in.
Okay, thank you, Holly. Actually, having this random roll call sheet kind of helps me too, because I am still a council member, so my name came up next. So my comments would just echo what was said before me. During that meeting, towards the end, I did ask for that authority one and the mandate one to be on the next meeting that we had, so that plenty of notice could be put out and it be written out, because I was concerned and a little bit confused too with what was going on. From my understanding of it is we did kind of point direction, and then towards the end there was a second to put it on the next meeting, so it would be in written form with enough notice. So that was my understanding of how it done, and I would just echo all the comments and suggestions that were made before me. So the next one is Councilmember Allison. Do you have a discussion on this item?
Yeah, I think most of what I'm going to say has been said before, too. I agree with Councilmember Sherman on all that. My first statement. I think I've said it already at this meeting that I think that giving direction to our manager to speak with our legal team is perfectly fine at any time. Maybe we shouldn't be doing it as a motion, but just as concurrence. Sometimes we do it as concurrence. Sometimes we make a motion to direct the manager to this or that or whatnot. But I think direction to the manager has to be done when we're as a group of 7 and can't be done individually. So that meeting is the time to do that. And if it's an emergency to do, anyway, that's enough on that. Regarding this emergency meeting, my first thought when I got the agenda this morning was, well, there isn't any action items on it. What's so important that we have to have a 2-hour meeting when there's no action to be taken? It's all discussion. We can discuss on email and we can discuss on, we have a meeting scheduled for 2 o'clock tomorrow. They aren't nobody's going to sue us until we take action on something, and so we may have discussed something until we vote to shut the fisheries down, which I have no intention of ever doing. They're not going to come sue us, so this whole thing could have been done tomorrow. But anyway, I was clear that it was the manager was supposed to come back, and by the end of that meeting, I was pretty sure that 2 o'clock tomorrow afternoon, we were going to be discussing it as a real agenda item. So anyway, that's that. I've got, we needed the information and we're still waiting for it.
So this might be a good time for me to clarify some things because I do think there's some confusion. So one, when you make a motion, you take action. That is an action, whether the motion is to direct your city manager or something more substantial. When you have a meeting and you have an agenda of what you're talking about, the notice provisions of that meeting are weighed by the propriety of them is weighed by the reason for the meeting. What are you doing in that meeting? Right? You guys were deciding an ordinance, and that was on the agenda. And even that agenda was very quickly produced. So the public's ability to be present when you have a meeting, no matter what you're deciding, whether it's simple or it's complex or it's dire, that never goes away. We never want to take from the public their right to be a part of the process. And when we have a meeting that is on a topic and then motions made on an unrelated topic, we have arguably done that. And so the best thing to do is to fix that before we have a meeting that incorporates items that were the result of the direction. So if you had your meeting tomorrow and what came before you were emergency ordinances and rules and the revisions to the COVID-19 rules to reflect direction of council and show options to council, then the city manager, the attorney, and the administration would be acting in response to the direction you gave at a meeting that many members of the public did not have awareness of, and when they did, if they did have notice of the meeting, they had no idea that these topics could possibly come up that they may want to make comments on. And so we see even today a lot of people making comments about the other meeting topics because they didn't have an opportunity to know to be there to do it at the last meeting. So the purpose of this meeting is simply to say, look, we're not using the direction, we're not going on Saturday to execute the actions of council, whether they're just direction or something more significant. So I think that's a really important thing to understand. This is about understanding how much notice we have to give and in what way, and resetting it so that council, the next meeting council has, isn't in reaction to direction given at another meeting that was not on the agenda. You're going to have very fast conversations moving forward, but you want the public to be there and be a part of that. And this meeting corrects that, and that's why it's just discussion. It's to make sure we stop the train and get it back on track.
Okay, thanks for the clarification, Holly. Councilmember Guard.
Yeah, I just got one quick question after echoing all the comments ahead of me. So procedurally, Holly, if we need, if this is a rapidly moving situation that we're in, if we need to get direction from staff or have them research something that wasn't on the agenda, we could do that by just doing a concurrence and asking staff to bring back stuff at our next regular meeting that we can post notice and that on it, or how do we do stuff that comes up on short notice here and do it legally so everybody's got their input and we're not shorting anybody on anything?
Yeah, I mean, one of the most inefficient pieces of government, which is designed to protect and involve the public, but it's your inability to meet as a council via email or in any other way, and then communicate that in a non-meeting to the city manager. What you can do is just individually talk to the city manager. You can talk to the mayor and say, hey, I really want to see this for my constituents. I really want to see a plan that looks something like this. And that direction should go to your city manager, and it's her responsibility to be responsive to council members. And so when you're putting something on the agenda, and Susan, I don't remember, do you do 2 council members? Off the top of my head, I can't remember.
Yes, 2. 2 can.
2. So you talk to one other council member, and you decide what you want to see, what kind of direction you want to give, and you have the ability to do that. And that gets it on the agenda, and then the clerk and the city manager, the 2 council members, and myself will work on, okay, what's the notice here? Do we need to do this in 6 hours? Is this incredibly important and emergency related? Because you're going to have those. You certainly are going to have those over the next couple months. And that's why we gave you that flexibility. Or is 24 hours enough here? Or are the rights impacted here so significant, and the importance of what the doctor is saying it's so important for the community that we need to provide 48 hours, and we weigh the harm. And I'm not saying that's easy. That'll be hard for everybody involved, but that practice of going through the process of weighing that is really important.
I don't think I'm quite clear on the answer. So what I was asking about, if it's something that comes up that we're talking about discussion-wise at a meeting, or if something comes up shortly before a meeting, we can't even discuss that until we put it on an agenda to notice discussion of it, even if we're not going to take any action, except have staff investigate it and come back to us with recommendations. How would we do that? Can we do it with just a concurrence to ask the staff to look at this?
Yes, and if you have a properly noticed meeting, a meeting that has an agenda and has been out to the public, so they have, and your comments and direction are staying somewhat in line with your agenda topics, I'm not nearly as worried. I'm not worried about that, and that's what you guys usually do, right? You'll want to give direction to the city manager to look into things. Sometimes in your council comments, you'll give direction to the city manager. So it's not, or you'll, and that is fine because you have a properly noticed meeting, so the meeting itself it's not suspect. But when a meeting is called extraordinarily quickly to deal with an emergency situation, it needs to stay very on point. And that's when that gets muddy. So I think when you want to do something and you want to direct the manager to do it, and you're in a properly noticed meeting, you just go ahead and say, I'd like to direct the manager to do X. And Susan will walk you guys through that, and sometimes concurrence is appropriate, and sometimes you might want a motion. You have more flexibility in a properly noticed meeting.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, Councilmember Gleason.
Yeah, I guess my first question would be, are we doing anything dumb today at this meeting, or are we legal?
Well, we are doing everything we can to do nothing dumb today. You are having an emergency meeting, in essence, to talk about making sure the public's more involved and notice and proper notice is given, and to stop any action, and really just to understand that no action is being taken based on inappropriate direction, not inappropriate direction, but inappropriately timed direction at the last one. So everything we're doing, there's no actionable item here. There's no way someone could say they were harmed by this meeting, because it really is we care so much about involving our public. We're going to have a meeting to remind ourselves how to do that in light of this very novel, complex situation caused by COVID.
All right, well, thanks. So the reason I'm asking is because we didn't notice this one 6 hour. There was no 6 hour notice on this meeting either. And I did not know that that was our minimum amount of time. So I do appreciate Helen and Holly for putting the brakes on last meeting when we were doing this. I just think this is, this is unprecedented stuff, and I hope the community understands that we're probably going to have some mistakes that we make. They're definitely not intentional, and I value the public's time. I get called from 8 o'clock in the morning. I'm sure we all do, from 8 o'clock in the morning until my wife makes me shut my phone off. So this is a 24-hour-a-day job all of a sudden. So that being said, I got a letter in our email from Helen discussing something about, I think, item number 2. Is that going to be what we're going to be discussing next?
I think we will wait until the next publicly noticed meeting, and we'll make sure that that information is out. I just really wanted clarity on direction and clarity on, I will say that the public heard at the last meeting that council had a very clear intention to have city manager and incident management team move in a certain direction. Because we didn't have the ability of others to participate in that conversation, it was perceived by the public that this particular direction was biased or was left out a critical part of our community. And that part of the community, the processors, are, in my mind, rightfully concerned and upset and feel that they didn't have an opportunity to participate. I believe if we correct that and give them that opportunity through public notice of action that council would like to take, we will be in good stead.
Okay, Helen, so does that mean that, so tomorrow's meeting doesn't have this on the agenda, so we're going to have to push this off for another day, correct?
I have yet to put out tomorrow's meeting's agenda because, as you all know, things are changing minute by minute at the state with every new press release, et cetera. So Holly has been trying to help write the agenda items as were directed in the meeting of the 8th, but now I don't know. I don't know when. I mean, in another hour or two, I could notice a meeting 24 hours from now. But I think things are continually changing.
Holly, could you speak to, we had actually, as council directed, asked Holly to put together, I don't know if it was an ordinance, I guess it was an ordinance to satisfy your direction. And that would have been open for discussion, and there would have been an opportunity for public input. The state of Alaska has since come out with clarification or revision of their small community exemption. And they are now saying that communities like ours, because we have a health facility, will not fall under that small community exemption. So that changes basically many of the things that you discussed on Wednesday and negates some of the directions. So Holly, you want to speak to that?
Sure. I mean, I will just say I had drafted an emergency ordinance for council that imposed a 2-week quarantine and encompassed the structure that we know from the under federal and state law regarding quarantine that we know needs to be in place, and there's these due process pieces we have to address, and so we put that in there, and we had references to our own letter to the Attorney General and the non-objection that we've received from that letter to date, and various other things that are now up in the air. So I feel like the structure of the emergency ordinance as it was drafted by me was basically outdated within 2 hours of it being completed. We do have that draft though, I also substantially completed changes to the COVID-19 emergency rules, which would be implemented by your city manager, but before council for ratification. But again, even those changes, they are directly linked to the quarantine provision in the emergency order, because how we do quarantine, how we enforce it, all of that, we need to be clear. People have to understand that on the front end. Again, we're back at, we can, quarantine is something that makes a lot of sense in light of something like COVID-19. It's a recognized way for communities to protect themselves. However, how we do it has to be very cognizant of the fact that there are constitutional rights to privacy and due process we afford people when we are, restricting where they can move and how they move, right? So that's where we are with that. We're sort of nowhere, because what the flux on the state level is impacting our ability to get something to you that is not in constant motion. I know that's not ideal.
The other thing that Holly had prepared was there was a request for a 2-week travel restriction, basically saying we're going to take a pause and not allow travel in the way we had. And under the small community exemption, the thought was we would be able to do that, and we can't.
Okay. This is Melina again. I guess I'm just going to keep, since I'm going down council questions and comments in the order, and we're kind of talking about item 2 and 3. So the discussion, I'm just going to kind of open it up to all of those items for council and go down that list again, because I'm sure they'll have more questions that can be answered by the manager and by Holly. So Tom Baylor?
Yes. I'd like maybe a little clarification, and this will help the public, the rest of my council members and staff, in regards to what should have been just concurrence to have the city manager speak to the lawyer about the request that the medical staff made. So the intent was the medical staff brought up an issue, and I thought it was a worthy issue that it should get a hearing at council. And so that's why I brought it back up. But if we would have just said, put that on the agenda, we would have met in 2 weeks, and the first question would be, what does the lawyer say about this? So my thought process by asking the city manager to discuss it with the lawyer was to get that out of the way. So when we went into the meeting, we had a clear picture of what we could and couldn't do. So for the public out there that, and others that I think we kind of made a misstep there, the intention was to get the information first, then bring it out to a public process. But that was the intent, and I apologize if we got sideways, but no harm, no foul, I don't think, on that one. Thank you. And then, and the other thing is the ordinance that we passed, that is an issue, and we do a motion to rescind and do a do-over on that one with proper notice. That would be the question for Holly.
I mean, I think that it wouldn't hurt you to do an ordinance, and I don't know that you even need to rescind that. I think it's just doing an ordinance or even a resolution, restating it, or just reaffirming it. I mean, we could be creative because the ordinance is there was notice, but it's simply just giving that extra hearing. So just give an extra hearing, and then we can change the effective date of that ordinance. I think that is the safest way to do it because of the amount of notice and the scope and the nature of the emergency ordinance. Because don't forget, there will be emergency ordinances that you need to enact in 6 hours. You know, I mean, you're going to need to, I hope that's not true, but it is very possible. And you need the flexibility. Council has to have that flexibility when we're facing this type of emergency. So, but that would be my advice, is that we do an agenda. And I'm not sure that I would recommend doing it Saturday. I think that, again, we are always balancing where is the emergency, what's the emergency, right? What's the nature of it, and what happens when we add time in order to give public process. So if Monday would not have a significant difference between what happens on Saturday versus what happens on Monday, then we should have that meeting Monday, because we are still in this abbreviated notice realm. So my recommendation would be put out a special meeting for Monday and address each and every one of these things, and and council, I think your direction is clear, just as individual council members, and otherwise to the city manager. I think she has things that she wants to bring to you, and that way you can wrap it all up in a properly noticed meeting, and the public will be ready because the agenda statements will be clear.
Can I just make one comment? And maybe you can all just, so just to be clear, when you instructed me to investigate and to bring back information, at no point did you intend the medical team to start doing what you had discussed? Because that seems to be the issue at the moment, is that there's a misconception about council direction turning into action on the ground in Cordova now, versus council direction that would go through manager and go through due process and turn into direction that would go into effect after that council action was taken.
Absolutely not. The intent was for you to get the information to present to council on a meeting to be noticed at some certain point. That was the whole idea. The idea was for us to be able to come into a meeting with all the information that we had and the public had. And like I say, the first question somebody's going to ask is, what did the lawyer have to say? So that, by no means were we given direction to anybody but you, just to find out the opinions of the lawyer.
Okay, and if council agrees with that, then I'll make sure that that's communicated to the folks on the ground so that we can, again, reset what we're doing and wait for council action.
Okay, maybe since we're going through this list, you can just write down little check marks next to council members' names so they can all tell you whether they concur with that or not. Does that sound okay, Helen?
Yeah, I just want to make sure that, because that's really where the crux of this conversation or this confusion is being generated from, is what exactly did council intend? Because different people heard different things. And so if indeed it's to make sure that city manager gets the information that council needs to make an appropriate decision, and that that meeting that occurs at is publicly noticed, we will make sure that the on-the-ground actions at this moment cease until council approves.
Councilmember Schaefer, do we have you on the line again? All right, not hearing there. Councilmember Sherman.
Thank you, Vice Mayor. I just have a couple comments. One is, I wanted to clarify, I believe it was Helen or maybe Holly just said that we do not have the right to impose the close down on the travel, and I believe that is because of Commissioner Crum's answer last night that we have a critical access hospital, and that's why we don't have that right. Is that correct?
Councilmember Sherman, I'll respond to that, although that was, Helen made that comment. The truth is we don't know. You know, he made a comment that this applies to critical access hospitals, and that, you know, and Cordova has a critical access hospital, and a comment that this wasn't designed to apply to Cordova. But we have yet to see, I mean, these are comments that are being made. These are not documents that have been produced. I don't see a revised attachment B, and I think that, you know, we'll make sure that when we're bringing things to council, they're based on actual documentation and forms and the true limits of what you can and cannot do. Right now, that's just rhetoric, but it does show us that, according to them, they are changing that attachment B to limit it to people, or to exclude not only communities with tribal health hub hospitals, but also communities with critical access hospitals. Does that answer the question?
It does, thank you, and I'll keep following that. That is something that I guess I would like to have an answer to, because to me, one of the things I came away from the other meeting with the discussion with the medical team was that it would be good if we could literally close down travel till, say, maybe May 1st and get all our plans in place and continue to work with the processors so that we're all ready to go by then. My only other comment is I do concur that was not what we intended at all. And I'm still sitting here reading my notes trying to figure out how we even got to that point in somebody's mind. And then thirdly, I would love to, I've been reading the mutual aid agreements, and it seems to me like those might be an avenue for us rather than some of these other actions that kind of get us into legal land, that these mutual aid agreements with the processors might be our tool to make sure that everything happens, then we all agree on it because it is mutual. And so I might suggest that be on an agenda, and I really concur with the idea of Monday for a meeting. This is ridiculous. So thanks.
Okay, so now it's Councilmember Meyer, myself. My thoughts on this is things are changing every day that have been stated. So when two council members request something to be an action item on an upcoming meeting that's coming up, I would still like that to be carried out, and I think we all understand that things change day to day, and then proper notice for that action can come up. And if things change on a state level that either allow or not allow us to do that item, then we usually have a memo up in front of it that has legal problems that come up, or even if something changes right before a meeting, then council can be informed of it, and we can either revert it back to staff for it to be changed to meet those requirements, or if it's something legally we can't do, then it dies. But if we at least continue with our process of getting something written on an agenda, then we're providing that public notice. I'm a little concerned right now that something that two council members wanted to be on an agenda item for the next meeting has been pushed now to Monday from Wednesday. And I completely agree that we need that public notice and we need it written so that we can take up that item. If things change or if details in that change, then we can make an amendment to change something in that we're voting on or something. But if we have nothing written and we have nothing put out to the public for even agenda items, then we're just going to be picking up pieces as we go. So I think this discussion, this meeting is good, and hopefully we can clear some things up. But I would like to see, or if if something comes up and staff thinks that it's not going to be legal anymore because of comments made, then whoever council members are requesting that item to be put on the agenda, I would like them to be notified pretty early on so that adjustments can be made so that it can be put out for public notice rather than pushing the meeting back later. It's not really a question, but if Holly or if you want to respond to any of that or clarification, anything I said, then invite you to do so.
No, that makes sense on my end. And I think that, in this case, we're pushing the meeting in order to comply with notice requirements, make sure that you guys are on really strong footing there. But I think that absolutely council can always react to what's in front of them with the information that you have in real time. So I have no problem with that.
Okay, Councilmember Allison, you're up.
Yeah, I agree with what's been said. I'm fine with a meeting on Monday. In fact, I don't think there's any meeting we've had in the past 2 weeks that's been a big rush. I don't see where this is a big rush to have a Monday, quite frankly. But I'm willing to meet whenever we want to meet on it and get plenty of notice out there to people. I understand that there may be emergencies in the future or items that need to be decided right away in the future, but I haven't seen that happen yet. So anyway, yeah, I'm okay with getting information and getting it on an agenda and discussing it. That doesn't necessarily mean I support any specific action on the other end of it until I see the information.
Okay, Councilmember Gard?
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, I'd like to just echo those comments ahead of me and say that as rapidly as all this thing's been moving and as much as we've all been trying to learn about it and do the right thing, there are going to be things that happen that are perceived missteps. There's all kinds of stuff going around the rumor mills that raises worries and fears. Most of them are unfounded or unintentional. We're not trying to cut any of the public or any sectors of the public, processors, fishermen, business owners, general citizens, or whatever, out of the process. We're just doing the best we can to try to keep up with what's going on around us. So please have patience with us. If you think anything's gone on, come into the system and talk to us about it, but we're doing our best.
All right, Councilmember Gleason.
If I may just interrupt real quick, Madam Mayor, it's Tom Baylor.
Go ahead, Taylor.
I do believe the city manager asked for clarification on the intent of the motion that we passed, and I think that got left behind. And I think I did answer it directly that no, it was not my intent for that procedure to go in effect with the incident command team. And I just want to make sure that she has clear direction on that, because she did ask us directly. Thank you.
If I wasn't clear enough on that, I said I echo all the comments in front of me. So, no, that was not my intent also. If I wasn't clear enough on that, I apologize.
And thank you, Councilmember Baylor. I do have it written down, and since I'm going down this list, Gleason is the last one for a question, and then I did write that one down just to make sure that we do cover that. So, but thank you for bringing that up. Councilmember Gleason?
Yeah, I also agree with Tom that was not the intention. I didn't realize what the fear was until I read a letter came into my mailbox yesterday about a comment that Dr. Sanders had made in her first letter, where it was, I think, 500 people could possibly die, worst case scenario. The fear from the processors became apparent to me that we were possibly going to put full authority in the hands of the doctor that said that to open and close them. Well, of course, they probably got terrified at that point because it would be, you know, a legitimate concern of theirs that no matter what they did, they would not be open. And so I think that the speed that we were moving is dangerous, and the lack of information. We haven't even seen a Canry plan. We haven't even seen the state-approved plan. So we're operating with zero information, and that it's hard with as rapidly as this COVID moves and as rapidly as the decisions that we have to make. It's hard for the information that we need to get back to us. And I like what Kathy said. Those mutual aid agreements would simplify our lives, and it would definitely probably let the processors take a breath. So we have to think about physical health. We have to think about emotional health. This is a year. We got probably a year of some version of this coming our way. So I just want the public to know that we're doing the best we can, and we're trying to right a wrong today, and I think we've done that. And on the ordinance, my fear was that since we didn't get the proper notice, that the ordinance could possibly be contested in court if we find somebody. I'm speaking about the ordinance on issuing fines. If we find somebody, they go to court and say, hey, those guys didn't public notice that thing's not legit, and I don't have to pay my fine. So I agree that we need to put it onto a different meeting with plenty of notice. We can re-vote it again. I think Tom was the one that said that, and I think that's the avenue we need to go. And we need to step back. We got to take a breath. We got to get the information before we make the calls. That's all I got.
Okay, thank you. Councilmember Baylor, I'm back up at the top with you, and you brought up a good point about not all of us address the issue of intent, so of that last motion that was made. So I'm just going to go down the list again real quickly, so if any council member wants to add any direction or what their intent was for the direction that was given the last council meeting on the medical teams authority within the incident management command structure, we'll go ahead and run down the list real quick. Tom Baylor, I think you already said it, but is there anything to add for that intent?
Yes, and this would be for the manager and incident commander. We need to, if council is going to set a policy in the future, we need to have a system that it is very, very clear, when we write it up. There's got to be a process. It can't be, this motion, and then they run with it. So it's almost, I don't know the way to do that, and I'm sure the city clerk is pretty sharp on that, and the city manager can figure that out. But if we are going to give any kind of direction, policy direction, it needs to be very clear that all of us understand it, and staff understands it, and moves forward, and the public understands. So that's maybe a lesson from this. Thank you.
We lose the chair.
Are we there?
Melina, did we lose the chair?
Did we lose council?
Oh, I'm online.
Oh, okay.
Oh.
Keep something, sorry. Sorry. Okay, Councilmember Schaefer. Do we have you on the line? Okay, Councilmember Sherman.
I concur. I think I did that before.
You did. Thank you. And for me, I don't know that I really addressed the intent for that. And my line of thinking is really with Councilmember Sherman when she talked about those mutual aid agreements. I maybe have made the comment that at least my intent of that authority or that direction to give authority was more based on those mutual aid agreements for all the businesses, not just targeting the processors, but fishing vessels have it, local businesses have them. My intent or direct intent or my thinking along that line was just medical based. So just like a health inspector would go into a facility and look at their plans or their process of how they're doing it for a restaurant or anything else. My line of thinking was medical director should be a part of that. And we have a large medical team within the incident management team, so I think that was a good tool for that. And the manager, since this was your question, I'm going to, I should have said it a little earlier, but if you have any other questions for council members as we're going down the list for this intent, just go ahead and speak up.
Thank you.
Councilmember Allison?
Sorry, I had it on mute. I had no intentions of giving direction to the medical team there. I'm not sure exactly how that process works with the IMT. If council gives direction to the medical team or not, but I certainly had no intentions of that. I think any direction we give needs to come through our manager, and the direction to the manager was to discuss it with the attorneys and not necessarily enact anything. So, yeah, I had no, I don't have any intentions of giving one individual or one department their full authority to control everything that happens in the city. So, the medical team, I think, took it upon themselves to enact something that wasn't quite ready yet. So, anyway, no, had no intentions of them going forward.
All right. Thank you, Councilmember Allison. And I think you stated that a little bit better and others for me too. You know, we give direction to our city manager, and we tell her what we're wanting to see, and she's the one that enacts it. And there is definitely a chain of command. So, thanks for your statement there, Allison. Jeff Gard?
Yeah, it's echo Councilmember Allison's comments there. There is no intent to directly send the medical director out to do visits. Then there's a structure to go through for stuff like that. If that's what we're getting to doing it, but we were still in the investigatory stages. So there is no intent to do that at that time.
Okay, Councilmember Gleason.
Yeah, I'm sorry. What are you asking me again? If I was, the intention was to direct Helen?
Yeah, I think you did say it in the last one, but I just wanted to make sure that every council member had a chance to give, because our city manager is asking what our intent was behind that vote.
Roger,
I think you kind of said it. But.
My personal intent behind that vote was to give her direction to see the legal ramifications of what was asked of us, I guess. I'm trying to remember how the meeting went. I think we were in correspondence when we made the motion. We were talking about a letter or something. Anyway, it's the same as it was before.
All right, thanks. Thank you all for bearing with me too. It's a little different sharing a meeting from online and on the phone and not seeing anyone in faces even at the office there. So this is taking a while, but I think we're having good discussion. Is there any other council members that want to just go ahead and speak up if you have any other discussion on that item 2 and 3? All right, hearing none, does the city manager want to have any comments or anything about those items?
The only thing I'm going to do is this afternoon at 3, there's an industry call, and I'm going to participate and just share what we just discussed with them and let them know that we will be having a properly noticed meeting where issues that will impact them directly will come up, and I'll make sure they have that information and that they will have an opportunity to share feedback, as will the rest of the public, with council.
Okay, thank you, Helen. Holly, do you want to add any other comments into those discussion items?
I would like to make one comment for the record, and that is that just so it's very clear, Council's discussion today and the reflection of their intent at the April 8th meeting cured, in my legal opinion, any violation or any improper notification to the public. The Council has been conducting itself lawfully and in compliance with your laws, and that this was a really productive meeting that brought the public back into the fold to the extent that they were accidentally left out. So that's all.
Melina? This is Mayor Copeland.
Oh. Are you in the room or on the phone?
I'm on the phone.
Okay. We're just kind of wrapping up here to audience participation, but we're still under new business. Was there something that you wanted to interject?
Yeah, I just wanted to let the council know that I've been on the call almost the whole time. I called in about 4 or 5 minutes late, but I caught all the audience comments and all of the discussion. So I just wanted to let them know that I'd heard all that and I understand the guidance from the attorney. And for my part, I wanted to kind of apologize. I know the request for that ordinance 1185 came in timely, and I should have caught that it needs to be an emergency ordinance if it wasn't on the agenda originally and didn't have at least 6 hours of notice. So anyway, I'm a lot clearer on those processes now, so I can help facilitate council's work. And I have a couple of other follow-up questions for Holly just about meeting process and stuff, but I can ask her those offline. So thank you, council. A great meeting and well chaired. And also, I just wanted to interject that it's fortunate that we have the manager that we do with lots of things spinning in circles, and she stayed very grounded and kept us on good legal footing, but also executed the will of council as quickly and efficiently as possible. So that's all.
All right. Thank you, Mayor Copeland. All right. Next item on the agenda is audience participation. So do we have anybody online, Susan, for audience participation?
Yes, we do.
Wanted to kind of apologize. I know there is.
Okay, you're online. Can you mute your YouTube in the background? We're under audience participation, and there's a 3-minute limit there that I'm going to be sticking with. So if you could state your name for the record and then go ahead and give your testimony.
Sure, this is Katrina Hoffman, and thanks for the opportunity to testify. I'm just thinking about the emergency situation and the special meeting scenario, and I'm looking at City Code 3.12.030, which describes the rules around calling special meetings. And I agree with you all that things are changing by the hour. This code defines that you must publish an agenda or purpose for the meeting a minimum of 24 hours prior to each meeting. I'm wondering if there's an opportunity for council, as the code states, at least 4 members of council or the mayor to state a special meeting schedule that will occur roughly every 48 to 72 hours for a defined period of time, such as the next 2 weeks or the remainder of the month of April. The purpose, at least one agenda item of that meeting, can be to review public correspondence received since the previous meeting, and the details around that must be published at least 24 hours prior on a revised agenda, or you can cancel that standing special meeting. I would like to have sufficient notice of meetings, as I know everyone else would. I am comfortable with you canceling meetings, and I understand that there may be times when you need to call a meeting with 6 hours of notice, and I'm going to try and be supportive of that, you know, if your purpose is justified. But I'm hoping there are ways we can work within the city code that allow you at this time or in advance to notify the public of special meeting schedule well in advance of these, let's say, shorter time frames by which everyone is scrambling to understand the purpose and to respond. Thanks so much.
All right, thank you for calling in, and those were some great suggestions. Is there any other calls on the line?
Melina, can you post the number that they need to use? D1 is asking me for the number, and I don't have it.
Yeah, the public call-in number is 253-6202. And each call is going to be placed on hold. So when calling, go ahead and stay on that hold line, and you'll be patched through when we receive you. And then please hang up after you make your comment so the next person can call. So we are limiting the callers to 3 minutes per call. So just keep that in mind. And Susan, is there anybody else on the line?
I think there's someone on right now.
Okay.
Hey, good afternoon. Brett Bradford here, 402 Railroad Row. I just want to encourage you guys to follow Holly's advice on this and Helen, but also at the same time, educate yourselves on the Open Meetings Act. It's very important to know what that says. It's for the sake of not only the public, but for the sake of our permanent fund. So check that out. And also, might not be a bad idea to refresh yourselves on some Robert's rules, procedures, and things of that nature. Anyway, that's all I've got. You guys have a good day.
All right, thank you for calling in. Is there any other callers? Hello, you're on. Go ahead and state your name for the record. And
Hi, this is Raven Madison, I'm sorry, again at 502 4th Street. I just wanted to state that I hear a lot of people talk about the spread of false information and talking about creating panic and things like that. I just want to make clear that there has been no official amendment to the small community travel order, and that information is directly from the governor's office. So I just want to make sure that that was clear, that there has at this time been no amendment. Thank you.
okay, is there anybody else? Hi, you're on. We're on audience participation. So if you have a comment, go ahead.
Okay, this is Jim Smith, 4.4 Mile Whiteshed. It's nice to hear from this lawyer, not through the filter of our city manager. Seems what the lawyer is telling us about the state mandate and what the city manager is saying about it are two very different things. You know, I'm not sure she's acting on the will of the city, more on her own will. So I'm wondering where the processors are on this. And I think we need to give Dr. Sanders as much power as she asked for. Thank you.
Okay, do we have a next caller?
Hello?
You're on, sir. Yep, go ahead and state your name and your testimony.
Yeah, hi. This is Matt here, currently at 605 Council Avenue. I'm a local, second-generation local Cordova fisherman who planted the roots in this town. As a young fisherman, I have invested greatly in this town, and my livelihood, along with every other local young fisherman, revolves around a successful salmon season. I understand both sides of this pandemic, but I urge Council to take into mind the economic disasters many young people and young families are facing. I would like to see our fisheries opened and managed in the most responsible way possible, and priority given to local constituents for the backbone of this town. I appreciate all the hard work Council has put in so far, and thank you. I'm out.
Okay, thank you. Is there another caller on the line? All right, you're on audience participation. Go ahead and state your name and your comment.
Yeah, my name is Barry Merritt, and I'm calling from the lower 48. Just turned my phone on about 5 minutes ago and see there's a meeting going on. I thought the meeting was tomorrow at 2 from a council member.
This is an emergency. Yes, we're on customer comments. We normally don't answer back and forth, but this is an emergency meeting for discussion items.
Okay, thanks. So
there's no action
I guess,
in today.
is there a meeting tomorrow at 2 or kind of lost here?
That may get moved. Our legal and city clerk and mayor and manager are going to be coordinating our next meeting. And we're going to be giving more proper notice and longer time. That was kind of about the meeting discussion today. And the meeting is up on YouTube if you want to go back and listen to it.
Okay, thank you. And I'm just a concerned citizen trying to make it there for the summer, and this is pretty damn confusing, and people wanting to sit back and do workshops and special meetings. It's time for action. That's my only comment. Thanks.
Okay, do we have another caller? Hi, we're on audience participation. Do you want to state your name and your comment?
Hi, this is Brandon Compran again, 6.5 Mile, Cordova, Alaska. I would just like to encourage everyone to visit keepcordovasafe.com. This is a platform to inform the public. We need to be transparent at this time, and Keep Cordova Safe does just that. I'm really happy to see you guys utilize your tribal council and work together, because you should be able to come together and use their tribal sovereignty and authority to isolate our community. But we need to do this now before it's too late. Thank you.
All right, go ahead and hang up, and the next caller can be patched through. Hi, we're on audience participation. Go ahead and state your name and your comment for the record.
Hi, my name is Steve Block, and I live at 707 Railroad Avenue. So thank you, Council, for coming together on short notice. I'm kind of alarmed. I guess what I heard in this meeting is the city manager saying that because the Wednesday meeting was not properly noticed, she did not take any of the council directives from that meeting. And I want to point out that the manager continues to stall on action from council. So thank you very much for directing her again to do what you told her to do on Wednesday. I would say please implement the small community travel restrictions as soon as possible. Commissioner Crum, in the press conference on 4/9, clearly did not exclude Cordova, and the governor has said that towns can take action. If some entity wants to pursue litigation, they can take that against the state who created this mandate. Please apply this directive for restrictions now until May 1st, so that this community can take a pause and get our plans into place. And I thank you, Councilman Sherman, for pointing that out, and also after that. I would say that the Saturday meeting has been properly noticed 4 days, so I am sorry to see there would be a quest for more delay on that. The public is ready for action, and we are communicating with our council people. Thank you, and I would also like to point out or say that I hope you are asking if there are any conflicts of interest of our city manager or our city attorney that need to be addressed. And I do wonder if Rich Portner and Bittner represents any fish processors or fish organizations. And thank you very much.
Okay, if you'd hang up, then the next caller can be patched through.
Commissioner Crum, the press conference on 4/9.
Okay, we're on audience participation and you're online. If you could mute YouTube in the background and then state your name and your comment for the record.
Yeah, hi, Bob Smith again, and I just wanted to talk about, you guys are very concerned with the flow of information and proper noticing, and that's good. I wanted to give a shout out to a certain business that I think has saved probably millions of lives in this country, and that's the NBA. So I think these businesses are quite concerned with doing the right thing. NBA is not the only one. My processor asked me to give them any heads up that I could about what the scuttlebutt and rumors were in this town, and I encouraged them to attend the incident command meetings. So I gotta say, I was a little surprised to find out that these meetings are not open, and even to the point that councilmen are not allowed to attend. So I think we got a real issue with that. And I also, again, I think our quarantine, we got people coming to town now, whether you do travel restrictions or not, this quarantine in the harbors really got to be looked at. Anyhow, thanks for your time. I'm out.
Okay, do we have another caller? Okay, if you could pause YouTube in the background, there is a delay, and then you can go ahead and state your name and comment for the record. You're on air now, so if you want to state your name and your comment for the record. Okay, we're on audience participation, so if you want to state your name and comment for the record, go ahead.
Lynette DeCook, 1014 Whiteshed Road. I want to thank Helen and Holly for their good directive here, and our council, our mayor, and everyone for the work they're doing. I do have some concerns with the travel ban that they were trying to go through. There is residents going in and out that are being diligent in their efforts to quarantine, and totally cutting off air travel to our residents would not be good. And I'd also, next meeting, it'd be nice to hear from our medical staff kind of what they have put out so far, some more details from them. I have a child who is at high risk, so it'd be really nice to hear an update on that kind of stuff at the next meeting. And thank you.
Okay, thank you for calling in. Do we have more callers on the line? Okay, if you could mute YouTube, we're on a delay, and then state your name and comment for the record.
Yeah, thank you, Melina. This is Sean Gilman, mile 2.2 Whiteshed Road. Kind of got flipped out last time I heard. So I just wanted to let council know that I understand they're going to receive threats and pressure from all sides of the community. And now I see, while listening, and slander towards maybe council members and manager. I appreciate you moving forward carefully and legally, and weighing your decisions. They're heavy ones. Thank you for that. And the only thing that seems to be getting lost otherwise is the fishing industry is deemed essential, not for economic reasons as much as food security reasons. And I'd like to just keep that up on the mantle there for everybody to look at. I don't think anybody feels making money this year is more important than keeping food security for Cordova and the nation. So anyway, thank you.
Okay, thank you for calling in. Is there more audience participation? Name and comment for the record. Okay, if you could mute YouTube in the background there, you can go ahead and state your name and comment for the record. You're online. You're live right now for audience participation. So if you could mute YouTube, state your name and your comment for the record. All right, I'm not hearing them at all on that end. Hello?
Is that it? I think that's all.
Okay. Okay, we're going to move on to council comments. Get my next sheet here. David Allison.
Yeah, thanks for the comments. Thank you, Holly and Helen for doing the research for us here. Appreciate the hard work everybody is doing on this. Again, I don't think that any of this has been a big rush to do things. I recognize that there will be those times in the future, but none of this that we've been talking about so far is a big rush on things. Just to get it out there, I don't have any problem getting more information all the time. That's how we make our decisions, and the best decision we can make is by getting information. So asking the manager to discuss something with the attorney is always going to be, I'm going to be in favor of getting more information. Doesn't necessarily mean I support the action that might be gleaned from that. In other words, I don't support locking up the processors at this point in time. Barring more information, I don't support locking up our ports, be it the airport or the city. I think we need to focus our attention on prevention in social distancing and following proper hygiene procedures and those kind of things, and work on that side. I know the processors will have big plans for that, and will take care of their crews. There are too many people that need to come and go to shut down the airport or our ports at this time. Again, I'm always welcome to hear more information. I think we need to be. I haven't heard anybody from the IMT or from our medical team or anybody discuss how we are going to care for these people when they come in. What's our plan? Do we have plenty of the medicine that people are using that solves the issue in a lot of cases? Do we have, what are we directing people to do? Because most people don't end up in the hospital with this situation. A bigger percentage end up being able to be cured with the medicine or even on their own. So anyway, I think we need to be focusing more on that than on locking up everybody. We're not going to stop people from coming in, no matter how you lock it up. People are going to find a way to get in, and I think we should be focusing our attention on the other aspects here. So anyway, I'm happy to meet whenever we need to meet, but I think emergencies need to be reserved for real emergencies, and I just don't see most of what we've been discussing for the last couple of weeks as any kind of emergency. Thank you.
Okay, Councilmember Baylor.
Yeah, I guess I would echo Mr. Allison's comments. I totally agree. And I think I know I fully support our city manager. I couldn't be happier. I think we've got the right person, the right job at the right time. And I think our staff is doing an excellent job with what they're working with. Our city clerk is having to put in many extra hours and extra meetings and trying to keep us straight. I know a lot of people out there are experts on Robert's Rules of Order, but we're doing the best we can. And if we make a mistake, we'll correct it. As far as information coming, you know, we got information from our medical team that they would like to purchase some antibiotic tests just here a couple of weeks ago. You know, when council took that, they discussed it, and I believe they made the right recommendation not to go forward. And now you have Dr. Fauci coming out, I think it was just today, saying that there is no test for antibodies currently viable in the United States, but they think they will have something in a week or two. So that just kind of gives you an example of we have to digest this information regardless where it comes from, and we have to make the best information. And in that case, even though it was recommended, we've certainly made the best recommendation and moved forward. So he even stated a lot of these companies were getting burned, quote unquote, burned by using some of these other tests that weren't certified by the FDA. So we're doing the best we can. I'm keeping an open mind. I'm anxious for more information. I think the canneries are probably just as freaked out about this as anybody. I have pretty good confidence that they are going to do the necessary steps. There's a little more concern for me with the individual fishermen coming in there, but I would also say to the fishing fleet, you need to help police that yourselves. There's always bad actors in some place, but I think we can get through this. So thank you.
Okay, Councilmember Sherman.
Hi. So I wanted to give some kudos to Helen. I know she's been hit hard, and it's a tough position. And I know when we hired you, you never anticipated a pandemic. And also to Clay, and thank you to Holly for being online today with us. I'm just hoping to take a little bit of a breather here and get organized. I think we did reset really well today. I think this is one of the hardest things I've seen since the oil spill in terms of communicating and getting people to understand the difficulties of the situation. So I'm looking forward to moving ahead, and hopefully we can stay on track.
Councilmember Gleason?
Yeah, I just want people to watch the governor's press conference tonight. He did say he was going to give a more complete answer today to Margie's question yesterday about the travel order, and it might answer a lot of questions. I also would like to thank Helen for her hard work, and this job comes with a lot of personal attacks, and we've got thick skin, and we can handle those attacks. But I would just say that I have full confidence in her, and I am so happy that she's here and that she's making this place her home, and she makes herself available to us all the time. She's probably, I don't know how many phone calls Helen gets a day, but if it's anywhere close to mine, it's a lot. And we're doing everything we can. I want to remind people, just follow the protocols. Those are made to prevent the spread. And the doctor that the governor has said yesterday that 14-day quarantine is the best thing for a town like Cordova. So we need to be enforcing that. I'm hoping that we see an enforcement plan on that. I know we've got the volunteers out at the airport taking names and stuff. That I think would go a long ways to making Cordovans feel a little more comfortable. They saw something like that. I think Bob Smith brought that up tonight too, or this afternoon. So other than that, thank you, Susan. Thank you, Holly and Melina. Great job. You're on the phone being the chair. That's amazing. So great job tonight for this afternoon.
Vice Mayor?
Go ahead, Mayor Copeland.
Yes, Mayor Copeland, thank you. First, I just wanted the record to state that Dr. Sanders was opposed to the antibody test. I had brought it forward, and I had 2 or 3 sources of information. I said that she said there was some limited value to it, but that's why I went back to her comments and actually read from them. And I do think the council absolutely made the right decision there. And I was fairly supportive of it from some of the information, but our medical staff really wanted to have the other test that we seem to be getting our hands on. And I also just wanted to thank Holly. She had very clear, concise answers for council, and I think it really helped us understand the difference between regular meetings, special meetings, and emergency meetings, and the noticing, and making sure that we keep the public notified. So just wanted to mention that. Thank you.
Okay, Councilmember Guard, you're up next.
I kind of echo everything that's been gone on before me, but one thing I'd like to remind everybody in this is not an easy time for anybody. I know we've all got a lot of frustrations and fears in this, and vilifying each other is not productive. If we've got differences of ideas, let's work on them and talk about them instead of threatening each other on Facebook or comments. During comment periods, if we're going to work together on this, which is the only way we're going to get out of this in any kind of decent shape, let's work together instead of vilifying each other in it. And that's all I got.
Okay, Councilmember Schaefer, I don't know if you got back online, but all right, not hearing from her. I'll go ahead and move to my comments. Thank you, everybody, for attending this meeting, everyone for calling in, taking up your time to do that. I know that it takes a while, and thanks for bearing with me. First time chairing a meeting over the phone, and it was definitely a long one. And so I really hope that I didn't do anything that someone wanted to speak and couldn't. So if anybody has any notes for me too, you're welcome to send them my way. And I want to thank Helen and Susan and Holly and anybody else that's in the room to help put these meetings together. I know that there's a lot of weight on your guys' shoulders, and you're hearing a lot from other people, from the community and from council members. And I just want to say thank you for the job that you guys are doing. And it's a tough position to be in, but I really appreciate the hard work and the effort being put into everything. I did like that suggestion about having a special meeting schedule posted, because canceling meetings is a lot easier for public notice rather than these ones that spring up. I know that this was a discussion, though, that I think council really needed to have, and having Holly on the line and having the manager be able to ask us for more direction, I think those were all things that needed to be said and done. So with that, there's one less thing to do, and since we're going to try to follow all the rules there, is there a motion to adjourn?
Motion to adjourn.
Second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All right. Meeting adjourned. Thanks, everyone.
At some point, we didn't do the
Bye.